Now we are live. It seems to be working. Perfect. Quite fun.
Perfect.
Good.
First order, turn off the music so I can hear you properly. Okay, nice. So welcome everyone who has tuned in to this broadcast. So let me introduce you what this is about, and then I'll stay silent for most of this broadcast because the interesting bit is where the conversation happens between John, Shiv, and Jason. So this is essentially a live consultancy session, a live stream consultancy session. This is quite interesting for us as well. It's going to be a 40 to 50 minute spontaneous conversation, unrehearsed entirely. The goal is very simple: is to help Shiv with the challenges and the current problems that she's having or potential growth areas for the business. The why of why we are doing this. So we are doing this because transparency and expanding of business knowledge is quite crucial at a time like this, and we all get to know more people. So and we learn from each other. So that's something we value a lot. I'll stay silent for the rest, most of this chat. You can use the chat for comments if you have anything to say or anything to ask. So I'll go on with introducing our guests for today. So I'll start with Shiv. So Shiv is the founder and CEO of Avika Limited, and she's shared with us a small summary of the growth areas, and I'll share just a bit of details from that. So growth and product development are the two areas where she's looking for guidance. She's soon about to launch the app and looking for ways to essentially strategically grow that with an audience and the brand, not just the app, but with the brand and with the audience. So that's an interesting conversation, I think. John is a business growth strategist. He has expertise in branding design, sales development, strategy, and leadership, as well as team culture. And James has 15 plus years of experience in successfully transforming startups into what he calls design the companies. So his focus is branding and design. He also has engineering and technical expertise alongside team culture. So over to you all. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ozan. Shivika, can you explain where you are currently? What is what is it you're looking to launch very soon, I guess? Explain more about the product and where you are.
Firstly, thank you so much for having me, Ozzy, and thank you for organizing this for us startups, because we definitely need a platform like this where we could discuss our problems and be able to seek answers to questions that are really very, very complex to us when we start out. So thank you so much for that. And as far as your question is concerned, we're at the moment in the stage of development and soon to be launching. It's scheduled to be launched in the month of August, and we've already done 2 rounds of MVP testing for the app, and the response has been great, not just from my friends and family, but from people outside. And we're just taking in feedback and trying to be as agile as possible and trying to reiterate the product and the application based on whatever feedback we're getting.
So tell us about the product, because I suspect there'll be people on here who haven't looked up Avika before the call. So
yes, so AVI is an online application. We're working towards digitizing thermal paper receipts. So these are receipts that you usually have loaded in your wallet, or you usually have put them accumulated in your shoe boxes. So we're an application that will help you digitize your receipts and be able to store them on your app. This will help you to get rid of the hassle related to paper that you're facing. And not just that, receipts have BPA present in them, which is bisphenol A, which is an industry ink that is a chemical which is harmful, not just environmentally, but for the physical skin, for the body as well. And it causes cancer, and it has been proven, and there are studies related to it. And then there is always the hassles related to receipts. So we're there to be able to reduce the hassles that come up with receipts and then help people, because there are stats that 3 out of 5 students in the UK face budgeting issues. And it's usually in the last 12 days of their budgeting. And we're going to be using those receipts and use behavioral analytics to help them be able to budget better, be able to use offers that are more aligned and more tailored to their needs and their whims and fancies. So, yeah.
Okay. The three things I picked up on that. You mentioned students. I'd be interested in understanding more about that, and I'm sure Jason's got some market demographic ideas around that. Yeah, the health thing is interesting. I never knew that. The other thing you talked about was, you know, budgeting and forecasting, but you mentioned AI, you know, and how that's going to work, and then you also mentioned, I guess this comes off the back of AI, which is offers and incentives and stuff. So can we begin with the student angle and understand a bit more about that? Because I guess from looking at Jason's, you know, chart behind him, that's right at the top, which is people. So you know, it'd be good to understand that.
Well, it basically starts from my own journey as an individual who was out there shopping, and I encountered this problem with the billing machine, and it broke down. And I remember it was the sales time when people were out there shopping and there were queues and everybody was just wanting to be in that queue and wanting to get done quickly. The checkout experience was in itself like really, really long and tiring in a way. So it was then that I realized that this needs a solution. This is something that everybody's facing, and we could, in times like now where everything literally, like from payments to even receipts on emails are going digital, how about digitize the very receipt itself? And then the student bit came in when in 2017, I was studying in the University of Warwick and I was doing my master's in international relations. And when I personally felt issues related to budgeting, I mean, there were times when I felt like, how should I be able to go through this week with so much amount of money? And that's when it came to me that students are the people who are really facing this problem. And a way to solve this would be to understand where they spend, how they spend, what are their behaviors like. So we will be using those receipts once people start saving them on the app and be able to use them in a way that to understand this is where they're spending, this is how much they spend, and these are their weekly spendings like. So using that data and that behavior of spending, so behavior analytics is basically understanding the current behavior and understanding the past behavior, and then be able to organize something around that that helps students in the future. So we'll use that receipt data and provide them with offers that are strictly aligned to their needs and what they like, where they like to spend. So for instance, I'm a student, my weekly budget is say £100. And I know based on your recent spendings or your last monthly spendings that this is where you spend, this is where you buy your grocery from. Once in 2 weeks, you go out pubbing. So we use that data and provide you with custom tailored budgeting. So based on your budget for £100, we provide you with offers, say £5 for this. This is where you're getting certain offers. And these are the places there's happy hour going on. Sometimes staying at home, you don't know where things are going on. So we will try and help them and make them more aware of using such offers and be able to stick to their budget. And that is all based on how they're spending and where they're spending.
So what is the biggest problem you're facing right now?
I feel the biggest problem for us right now has to be, and I wouldn't really call it as a problem, but it is something I would need guidance on, is that we are due to launch in the month of August, and having a tech startup, and I personally don't come from a tech background. I did my master's in international relations, and then I did my undergrad in political science. So this is something all the way new for me, but this is something I'm really enjoying. So it's like a transition in my career that I did, but definitely worth it. So what I want to know is, what is that the timeline, or what is the procedure for a tech startup to go out there before that launch, during that launch, and after that launch? What are the steps or the strategies that we should take into consideration to be able to launch the app in a way that it reaches the right kind of audience we are targeting and also solves the problem that we are trying to solve?
John, do you want to take this, or shall I go first?
Well, no, I was just going to say, it's kind of pre, at, and post. But you're not talking about finance, are you? You're talking about the push to get the product out there and get user up. And I guess there's two sides to that. There's the consumer, but there's also the people providing you with the discounts and incentives. Where are you on that journey in terms of that first piece, in terms of getting users and getting, if you like, providers of content and offers?
Well, basically, the starting point is where we get the users to be saving those receipts. So anything from related to offers would come in phase 2 of the application. Okay. So right now, the major focus is for us to be able to get customers on board who want to save that receipt, who think that there is no planet B and we need to be doing our bit to environmentally be more sustainable and help save paper. But we are in touch with a lot of brands to help us give us offers, and which we can be posting on the app so that they get the customer attraction that they need and we get the offers. So
it's interesting. So your first phase is to get your user base up so that you have a more compelling argument. Okay. So you're aiming at students, predominantly UK students, I guess, but yes, it could work anywhere. What have you done, or maybe this is actually the question back to Jason and I, building associations with university groups, whether they're universities, and we both lecture at universities, whether they are with student groups, with unions, etc. Are you looking for help to develop that as a marketing plan?
Absolutely, that is one of our top priorities. Reason being that I have done my master's from an institution from the UK, so it gives me the opportunity to be able to launch it there, or be able to seek students from there and understand how they function and how they're going to be spending. So I am in talks with the University of Warwick for the same, and we will be initiating the first launch around that area or around the West Midlands, and be focusing on the 14 universities which are close to Warwick or are closer to Coventry. So that is how we're starting to venture out when it comes to students. Definitely the universities are the number one.
Okay, so it's about putting together a plan to take it to the other universities, but not just the universities, right? The associated colleges and so on and so forth.
Definitely, colleges, universities, retail outlets, restaurants are something that we're looking at, because that's where we get the receipt, and which is majorly not of any use after a certain point. Okay. So,
and then phase 2, you said, will be the providers of discounts and benefits and incentives.
Yes.
Have you built any plans around that, or is that something else that you need some assistance with in terms of building out that content?
We have like a draft plan, but nothing solid.
Right, because that's a different thing. You know, one university in one town is a lot of people. One grocers in one town, even if it's one of the big names, is just one of many. So it's a much more difficult problem to solve.
Absolutely, and a bigger market, in fact.
Okay. The application, you said, is in pilot phase at the moment. So talk us through where that is and what's been achieved so far, and how you've built not just the application, but the whole user experience.
So far, like I mentioned before, that we have done 2 rounds of MVP testing. The first round was a digital wallet that we tried out, and it was tested with about 40 to 50 people, and we received good feedback on how things should function and what are the features that we should be adding instead of just what was already there. And then in phase 2, or rather the MVP testing 2, we did the digital receipts, where people could click a picture of the receipt, save them on the app, or be able to even access offers, which was only a dummy, definitely, but it was something to try in the beginning. So these are the 2 rounds that we did with about 100 people in total. And it included all students, it included professionals, it included some of my family members who were there to give me the right kind of feedback I needed in the beginning. So many of my friends who were there with me in Warwick helped me out through this, and they gave me amazing feedback as to how I should proceed forward. And after the 2 rounds of testing, we are now developing the final application, which should be launching in August. And that's where I'm needing the help. And based on the feedback, based on all the surveys that I conducted and all the research and all the reading, we finalized that we should start off with the digital receipts, moving on to the offers, and then be able to holistically digitize the customer checkout experience using payments and transfers and make it a fintech digital wallet eventually.
Wow. So Jason's the UX guy here, not me.
So what my experience is with all of this stuff is that when you are launching any kind of product like this, you find the reality is quite different to what even the initial research shows. Effectively, students in real world are, and general statements here being made. That's not what I think, but this is what the research finds. They're relatively sort of lazy people. They're relatively people who have lots and lots of apps on their phones. They're also very bad with their habits. Okay, so their habit keeping is not very good, and so what you find from this is that you find a lot more friction in real world than what you might have found with friends and family. Sometimes friends and family give you more friction than real world, but that's actually rarer than the other way around. And so what you want to do is you want to find the most frequently used use case and types of interactions. So for example, coffee is consumed more often, or beer is consumed more often than, let's say, students might pay for Netflix subscription and stuff like that. So you want to lock into those most frequently used use cases and really design that as well as possible, and really share the app with those students that are doing that all the time and that really having that particular problem, and keep as close an eye on how they're using the app, not just once, but over a period of time. And that period of time may be well into a bunch of weeks, not just 1 week or 2 weeks, but maybe a month or two, because you might find that they start using it more, they start using it less, and so on. But you want to build the least amount of product and get as much data as possible from real world scenarios, not the ones that are in lab, but in the actual real world open space, the kind of the jungle out there. And of course, there is the challenge of now most people are in lockdown. So you'll find that physical receipts are not that frequent anymore. Where did they get given out? Maybe in India there still are. I'm originally from Bosnia. They're still very frequent there. But in UK, a lot of these things have been digitized. So the students, you might find, they get a lot of these receipts in their inboxes and in all sorts of messengers and so on. So that could be a way to actually bypass the laziness of the student that's needed in order for them to snap and put the receipt into the app, but actually just tap into their source of where the receipts are and then turn that into a more useful and usable product for them without them having to really change their habits.
So, Jason, are you talking about, in effect, plugging it into someone's email address so that they go somewhere, they order something, or they don't even go somewhere nowadays, but they order something, it comes in their inbox, and then it just goes through to the app?
Exactly. And so being able to automate that process and creating a bit of a system that does that, so that the student, because think about it, nowadays everything's just kind of like one tap. That's what the kind of expectation is. Uber, Google, Netflix, etc. These are all one tap experiences. And actually the best interaction is no interaction. It just kind of does it by itself. So this is the kind of ultimate sort of magic that is something that every service and product is looking to create. And the closer they get to that, the less they're actually asking and depending on the user to carry out certain habits, which we all are very bad at. I might say, well, I gave up coffee yesterday and here I'm drinking my third cup and it's not even 12 noon,
So Shivika, have you built that out, or is it purely simply a kind of, photograph the receipt, throw the receipt in the bin? Where are you at in terms of capability?
Well, to begin with, in the starting, we're trying to like you just mentioned, that we should keep it very minimalistic, and that's the kind of mindset even I have. So we're trying to only launch with, say, 2 or 3 features, which would include scanning the receipt and being able to save it. The second feature would include where you can import your receipts from your gallery. So maybe you've taken receipt images, say, 2 days before you downloaded the app. So what you can do is import those receipts and be able to save them on the application, which is AVI. And just that you mentioned, John, that there should be an infrastructure where you could import images of receipts from your emails. We are working on that, so that there is this certain kind of filter where you can directly import receipts from your emails, or now there are PDF receipts as well that come on your messages on your phone. So be able to create that filter and import those receipts on AVI, so that they're not like different applications that us lazy students or the lazy ones have to really shuffle through, but it's really on one platform that everything goes, and without the hassle of really going for the tabs that import from here, import from there. So trying to create that infrastructure.
Okay, so you've got a roadmap, I guess, of day one is fairly minimalistic, to
Yes.
coin a phrase of what Jason said, which is just take a copy of a receipt and start to profile your past spend. And then you're looking to add other, and the AI will come later, and the
AI would come later, because we want to have enough data before we get into AI. So it's really important for us to be able to have enough data on each user, so that based on that, we could eventually launch more technology or introduce more technology to it.
Okay, but developing AI is completely different from developing applications. So that's different dev teams. And have you got your head around that yet, or is that actually we just know it's on the roadmap? We'll get to that later.
That's something on the roadmap, and we will get to that later.
Right. Okay.
I'm trying to educate myself right now on AI, actually, and trying to develop an understanding of the whole thing. And it is not really AI right now. It is about using that technology to be able to make a solution that is even sustainable 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line. So this is the moment where I'm trying to create an understanding, so that whatever solution we come up with using AI is definitely sustainable for the next coming years.
Okay, so you're about to launch now, August. I'm confused why August. Bearing in mind it's aimed at students and they're all on holiday, but there's probably a good reason for that. Where do you want to be at the end of this year, which isn't that far away, if we're being honest?
Yeah. Well, to answer your question, why August, is because September and October is the time when students come back. So we feel that it's the right time, a month before, to be marketing the app or be launching the app, so that people are aware and students are in the know and how of that there's something like this coming up. Or when we go back, especially international students who travel, they're the first ones to face budgeting issues, because the currency is different, and then you look at different things and you try to convert everything on according to your currency and things like that. So we feel that this is a good time to be launching it. And sorry, what was your next question?
Where are you going to be at the end of this year? Because the end of this year is one term, right? So you'd have had one term's worth of user data.
Well, where we see ourselves, I'll be honest with you, with the current pandemic, things are so uncertain that we want to try and be able to understand and move forward as much as possible. Like just Jack Ma said, that this is the time to stay afloat. So we need to just keep going. And in order to understand where we want to be, I mean, we do have like a rough strategy as to where we see ourselves 6 months. So I would say that we want to be able to have about enough users to start going further ahead, enough users and enough feedback to start going further ahead for the next year, to be able to introduce features that are more helpful, that create more value for the user, and not just minimalistic features that we're just going to be using to launch and to understand. So that's the whole idea, actually.
Okay.
So one of the important things, Shivika, for you to remember is that the users, the students who have already tarred with very bad characteristics, but just like any other human, they're not really looking to save receipts. They're not interested in this. What they're interested in is saving their own money. or actually even further than that, they're interested in spending money on things that they really like to spend on, as opposed to spend majority of it on things they don't like. So if they can save somewhere and then spend somewhere else, that's what they're interested in. And this is really what you ought to really get your marketing and product strategy around. Really drive that simple story to the students and say, hey, we can get you more money to spend on things you like more of. And then they'll say, how do I do that? And so, well, you got to start saving your receipts so that you understand where you're wasting it and so on. So this is an important kind of psychological change for you to remember, to really understand that nobody really cares about the product. Nobody cares about Netflix. They care about watching a movie. Okay, Netflix is a means to watching a movie. Similarly here, they don't care about saving receipts. They care about spending more money on stuff they want. Okay, and your product is a means to that end. So that's a job to be done there by the student, and a kind of aspiration that's a kind of really drives the purpose of your product. And more you can communicate those messages, the more likely you are actually going to help students save money and help drive the growth both of your product and their savings kit for them to actually spend it more on what they want.
That is, in fact, a very, very interesting point, and it comes at a time when we've been struggling with marketing, to be honest with you. I mean, we are on Instagram and we were trying to put out this content, which was not really working. And then we had this brainstorming session with my team, and we were like, how should we go about this, and what kind of content do we really need to create, instead of just talking about number of receipts, this is the number of receipts being printed, receipts has this is how it's made. So we were like, how should we go around this? And then we started talking about where students are spending and how much they spend on coffee each year, and other things like how they can be tips on budgeting. So these are the things we're now like going around it. And just the thing that you just mentioned is very interesting, because we did not really think about this so far. And I believe this is something to consider very soon.
I agree. Jason, that's worth the ticket entry price alone. I think that's great. This isn't about saving money. This is about spending more money on the things you enjoy. Yeah, and I can't believe Shiva only goes out drinking once a fortnight. But there we are. Yeah, I like that. It's very clever.
So this is actually always a thing for you to remember, really, because each one of the features within your product or a service, or even within the system that you're building, you should only really be building features that you can end up concluding as the end user's proper psychological recognized value. Okay, because really you can speak to people about saving the planet, saving money, and so on. Most people have got kind of negative connotations associated with those kind of messages. But when you actually speak directly at the heart of their own ego, which is, would you like to be able to spend more money? Yes, give me any means necessary to get there. And then you can actually orchestrate. And this is a very important thing to say, which is that becomes the core, like the heart of your product message or your even company message, that you then orchestrate all your other design decisions really about. It's like the essential core differentiating value statement. Okay, similar to like how Google says to help organize world's information and make it universally accessible, something like that. And then that inspires all sorts of other products and features such as Gmail, YouTube, blah, 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 searches and so on, masses of products, but the core heart sort of essence of it is the same.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we are definitely working towards, we have this vision where we want to create a cashless and contactless economy. And then keeping in mind the current pandemic, I think it has been proven further that we need less physical points and so many more digital points now, because people do not want to be interacting physically so much they wanted, say, before the pandemic, say December or say November. So that is definitely the mindset we're going forward with, and it has shifted a little bit in a way through the pandemic, and how we can further use the application or use this technology to help solve that problem as well. Because instead of just thinking that let's sit down because the pandemic is here and nothing's going to go, we instead decided to pivot and create more digital points and provide the solution in a way that it can reduce as much as possible the contact with paper, the contact with the retailer you're dealing with, or the contact with the friends you are going to split the bill with eventually. So yes, that has been the mindset all this while.
So the question I have is about monetization as well. So I guess the monetization comes out of the incentive deals you do with the retailers, right? Is that how you're going to monetize it, or are you going to have advertising? How's this going to work?
It is going to come out of the incentives and the offers that we're going to be doing with the retailers, but the second mode of revenue will be receipts itself. So for the small businesses and for the startups who have trouble keeping their receipts and trouble with accounting, so we have a freemium model for them, and we're working on that right now, but it's going to be a freemium model where you get to use, say, 100 receipts per month or say 50 receipts per month, and then so on and so forth. It will be charged for a certain price. So it's only going to be for the startups and the small businesses, not for students.
Okay. So, but then if your revenue stream is built on the incentives that you're going to offer from the retailers, it's going to be some time before you see a return.
It will be some time, and it is a journey, and yeah, we're ready for it.
Right. Okay, cool. Well, we might need to talk about funding as well, but I suspect that's one for offline rather than online and funding. But so how are you developing it currently? Have you got funding? Are you bootstrapping? Where are you in that kind of process?
We are bootstrapping, and it is self-funded so far. And eventually we do seek out funding, probably say 6 months to a year from now.
Oh, okay. That's a conversation for another day, as I said.
Yeah. A lot of details in there then.
So with regards to the growth, because your core kind of ideas that you wanted to discuss were around the product and the growth, I think there is an important thing to say here around growth, which is that now that you've hooked the student into this mindset of helping them save money and spend more money on what they really want, the next thing to really think about is how that story or that meme, okay, can be spread around student campuses in a way that maybe students help other students spend more money on what they want, and to incentivize them to do that through different means, whether they get more bills that they can digitize, or whether they can get some kickbacks from you in terms of special offers and so on. And really then looking at how that can be gamified in a way that more they get engaged with the app and the product, and more people they can pull into the app and engage them in the product, the more they can earn, basically. And so that's a very, very important thing to marry up with your product. All these things are to be designed, and design a challenge and a decision. But most of the time what I see product people, even product designers, let alone business owners, what they think about is they think about that initial launch. And they might succeed in the initial launch. What happens is that the usage spikes and then it drops off. And they might have spent loads and loads of energy, time, and money into spiking that initial usage, and then it drops. And then they kind of scratch in their head thinking, what's happening? The growth of any perfect company ought to be upwards like this, not in an exponential way, but in a steady upwards kind of linear fashion. That would be like a perfect growth. And you achieve that by designing into your product those viral mimetics that are actually story driven, and actually plug into that sort of reptilian brain that students have.
It's not just students that have reptilian brains, Jason. Let's be clear. We all have them, right? According to
Absolutely.
the paradox.
Yeah.
So, speaker, I guess my question is, and I'm conscious we've been on this for half an hour. What questions do you have for myself? What questions do you have for Jason? I think based on what you've heard so far, and any thoughts and ideas that have come to mind.
Definitely. One question that I would like either of you to address is that how does a startup, from the point where we're at and to launch, what are the strategies that we should employ for the right kind of product development that goes out to the market? And what social media channels, how should we market it during this period of before launch and whilst the product is in development?
Okay, so prior to launch, it's difficult. You don't have, if you like, anything to show, or if you do have something to show, you don't necessarily have anything that people can interact with significantly. So there's a lot of stuff you can read online about content marketing. So you've got to share the message, share the intention, share the journey as well, where you want to get to, what you're looking to do, but in a way that resonates with your end customer. So it's not about, to Jason's point earlier, it's not about the product. It's about the fact that, you know, it gives them something. So the Netflix example, Netflix is just the mode of transport, if you like. So lots of content marketing. I wouldn't worry too much about pictures of what the app looks like, because it's just the screen, right? You know, but what the messages are. Maybe build some specific branding feel and look. So there's some consistency in the branding as well. Jason's more the branding guy than me, so I'm sure he's got views on that as well. But I would start with just sharing the message, sharing the ethos, and getting people interested in what it is you're trying to do to help them.
Right.
My advice would be to use the designed company model here. And just to quickly run through that, your purpose is to enable students to spend more money on what they want. Then the people that you're looking to target are really the diehard, you know, those who are really driven to do that. The system in initial phases, you want to build something that's very, very non-technical, okay, as minimal as possible. The core innovation is that thing that nobody else does. The product at the very early stage could be literally the promise that you are going to get them to spend more money, okay? And maybe in return for that, you just need an email address for invitations and so on. The money you should be looking to spend is minimal, and initially it would have to be some sort of free service that gets just the usage data. And then the growth needs to be having that baked in viral promotion thing. So even like you might have seen early stage startups that just have a homepage with that promise, okay? And then it's like, get yourself early onto the queue here. And if you invite 6 or 7 others, you will get bumped up in the queue to get early access into this Make More Money app, okay? And so even before you even have a first sketch of any design, you could already have thousands of students queued up, ready and waiting for this product that you're promising them. That would be kind of the healthiest approach in the postmodern era, especially post-pandemic era, because you don't know when the world's even going to open up properly.
And content marketing absolutely has to have a purpose. Just to say, hey, this is us and this is what we do, is almost so what. There has to be a purpose to it. And yes, you need to start capturing, you know, various information about, you know, these people and you know, incentivize them to share and you know, you've set a limit of number of receipts. Well, maybe you set it at 50, and if you get 10 friends, it goes to 100, that kind of thing. You know, and you make them an early adopter of phase 2, etc. So absolutely, you need a database of a good few thousand people, which you can start building now. So that's where I would spend your time and effort, is sharing the key messages and getting people to understand and capturing the data. Moving on beyond that, you know, when you're ready to launch, you know, make those people that invested the time in you early, make them feel very special, because their first contact with you, their first interaction with you, the first time they get to go use the application, play with it, it's actually about, that's when the relationship proper starts. So make them feel very, very special at that point. And then keep them informed and educated and keep them sharing.
Definitely. Thank you for that. That was very insightful and helpful.
And in terms of development, there are lots of ways of developing it. So we'll pick that up again. That's probably another 40-minute conversation.
I agree.
So, okay, there's some questions coming. I wasn't expecting this. This is interesting. How is COVID impacting the app launch, especially when you're looking to have offers on the app during COVID? That's the first question. The second one's about a bank feed and auto categorization receipts. That's probably a complicated answer. So yeah, what's COVID had an impact on?
Well, as far as the question concerned for COVID impacting the app launch, I think in one way that it has really, really affected us is the launch date. I mean, we had to really postpone it for a time where we thought that it will be more convenient for us to be launching it and more people will be willing. So keeping in mind that the UK market has been opening up slowly and steadily, and there are phases to it, we were expecting to launch it in the month of March, but then we delayed it based on how the current situation was. And I feel that has been the only impact so far, that we had to postpone the launch. Other than that, everything has been going just right on track, and it has just given us more time to be able to understand the market better. And the pandemic has been such a huge learning, undoubtedly. So yeah, we've taken that time to be able to be better at the launch when the time is right.
So the other question here was, how much of an impact are you expecting COVID-19 to have on spending habits? I suspect, you know, people will be socializing less and drinking at home more. Or is that just me?
I think the question is more from Aman Ahuj is, how much impact are you expecting your app is going to save students on their spending habits? So can you quantify basically that thing that I was talking about, spend more money on things you want? Can you put a value maybe per month on average on how much more money could they be spending per month, let's say? That's the question.
Well, the point where I'm coming from is the impact that we're expecting to have is for students to be more aware of where they're spending, how much they're spending, and are they spending on the right kind of things? Do they really need those things? And then using that, be able to guide them better, that this is where you can spend, this is how much you need to spend. So I feel the very direct impact of having the app is clearly to be able to guide them better in their budgeting, be able to tell them that these are the categories you spent on, this is how much you spent on leisure last week, this is how much you spent on your groceries last week. So this is how you can save the following week or the following month. And this is how you can budget, while, say, for example, if you've been on a budget for £50 a week, now you can budget for a £30 per week. So this is more like educating and guiding them. But definitely the new point that has come in is be able to tell them that this is where you need to spend more money, how to help them doing that. And after this conversation, I am definitely looking into this and getting deeper into my understanding of this whole idea.
So the point here is that if I was to take, let's say, 10 students, and without any app, without any development, this would just be like a design thinking exercise that could be run over a 2-hour period, for example, even. I could just ask them to bring in their receipts or to help them analyze their spending habits, and then basically go through almost like a little bit of an accountancy process here to just kind of reshuffle their spending. It's like a thought experiment. Reshuffle their spending using what would be the notional proposition of what the app would do or propose, and then calculate through what kind of spending is possible. So if I run that across 10 students, then I could say, hey, the savings that we were able to do in this thought experiment went from £20 a month to £100 a month, which averages to something like, I don't know, £50 a month. That is your starting point to say, save or spend £50 a month extra on stuff you want. Okay.
Right.
Very cool.
Well, thank you very much to all three of you. I have been watching silently, but very interested in what you had to say, Jason, John, and what you have shared, Shiv. And I've been watching some of the comments, some of the interactions. I think this has been a very fruitful conversation and a successful first try in our live consulting session. So for people who are listening to us now, while you are here, please subscribe to the Startups of London YouTube channel, because we'll be doing more of these sessions. And we also keep creating interesting content that are essentially for founders and the tech ecosystem in London. I'll leave it over to you if you have any closing final remarks, anything that you'd like to share with the people listening, maybe a few comments, and then I'll end the stream.
Cool. Shivika, ladies first, I suspect, no?
Well, first and foremost, I would like to thank Ozzy, Jason, and John for organizing this. This has been very, very helpful, very insightful, and some amazing ideas came out of this. Something that I hadn't even considered so far, being in this journey for the number of years that I have. So thank you so much for taking out the time and giving me a piece of your mind and giving me the feedback that you just gave on the startup. And other than that, I am very happy to be a part of this, and it's the first ever. So I am very, very thankful and elated to be a part of the first ever live consulting session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shiv.
Good. Jason? Oh, I'll go next. Well, I've actually found it really useful as well. It's good. It's always good to get on a call with people with other ideas and share ideas with people like Jason. So it's always enjoyable. And Shiva, you know, to hear from you, your journey, and you've been on it a number of years already. So it's kind of interesting. For me, the one really interesting thing is the fact that I think a couple of times we said they're conversations that you know, we need to take offline because they're bigger conversations, which clearly demonstrates, I think, already the value in this kind of conversation, because it opens doors to looking at other things that still need to be done that we didn't even get to discuss today. So I think it's been, for me, enjoyable and very informative. So thank you very much. And Osman, thank you very much for setting this up, making it happen.
I think my closing remarks is that what I constantly see from first-time founders is that they work towards overbuilding the solution. So they build too much on the innovation systems and so on, and not focusing enough on the growth and money early on to just kind of generate some traction and early stage, very kind of high level interest, even on the concept of the thing. So more you focus on this side, the better you will be able to know what to really build and spend time and money on here. And that's why, for me, this model here always helps me actually not go off into building too many things, because that's what I've done too often and too much in my life, and not kind of returned value on that investment. So it's a message to me as much as everyone else. So that's that.
Thank you very much for joining in this session. I'll end the recording stream now. So goodbye to everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Tuesdays, 12 p.m. UK time. We'll have a session each week. So next week, this day, this time, I'll see you here again. And take care of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.